My head is way too big for this hat. Hey, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at 5 classics I want to read before the end of 2023. So this was sparked because I read The Picture of Dorian Gray in May. Yes, May. Read it in May. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Excellent starting point for anybody who wants to get into classics. His writing is superb. His dialogue is even better. His dialogue is magnificent. It's only a couple hundred pages. It's quick, enticing, exciting read. So I read that. I was like, right, I want to read more proper classics. I read a few modern classics, but I want to read some more proper classics. So I've picked 5 that I want to read. Now there's 2 that have been on my list for quite a while, which, I mean, are classics, so you're going to know what they are. But the first one is Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I've never read it. I know the story. Obviously, you've got Dr. Frankenstein, who creates this monster, but it's, you know, the corruption of innocence. It's the modern Prometheus. It's probably the most famous Gothic novel. Is there a more famous Gothic novel that's read currently? If there is, let me know. Mary Shelley, I think, was only 18 when she wrote this. It's now, I think it was written in the early 1800s. It's sort of 200 years old. And I want to read it. I'm going to read it my plan is to read it in October because Halloween. So why not? So that will be part of my Halloween reading. And I'm thoroughly looking forward to this one and seeing what it's all the fuss is about. And does it hold up 200 years later? I know it does because it's still a classic. So that's the first one. The next one I'll dress up for. Oh, my head is way too big for this hat. Oh God, okay. Yeah, that's too big. Is Bah Humbug, A Christmas Carol. This is my favourite. Well, no, so this is my favourite film. The Muppets Christmas Carol is my favourite Christmas movie, I think. It's got that. No, I don't think. It is. It's the one I watch every year at Christmas. It's brilliant. So I know the story, and it's excellent. I'm going to take this off because my head's going to... Anyway, tip my hat to you all. Same story. You've also got Scrooge, who is a penny-pinching miser, and it's his realization of the joys of Christmas and what Christmas means and the point of giving and being generous. So I will be reading this obviously in December because it's going to be Christmas. So October will be Frankenstein, December will be Dickens, and I haven't read much Dickens, mainly because his books are quite intimidating. They're normally quite large. Normally writing's really small. This is only less than 200 pages. Yeah, like 120 odd pages. So I think I can definitely manage this one. But it's going to be a Christmas read and see how true to the original text A Muppet's Christmas Carol is. Because I don't actually know, but I do know that story really well. I wonder if it's any close to this one. But this should be a good fun read for Christmas. Right, then the next 3 are inspired by, so I watched a couple of videos by Tristan from Tristan and the Classics, and it's great to see him back on YouTube after a few months out. But he's got a couple of videos out, mainly from last year, around where to sort of start with classics and picking some classics to kick off this experience. And so I went through the collection we've got at home, so my wife's and my late father-in-law's collection of books, to figure out what we've got, because I didn't particularly want to buy any more. And one of the authors that I know Tristan waxes lyrical about and is always impressing upon his audience about the genius of her writing, and that is Jane Austen. Now I've got 2 Jane Austens here because I've got to decide which one to read. So we've got Pride and Prejudice, which is probably her most famous work. I mean, I know there's a lot of famous Jane Austen works, but probably her most famous work. Now, my concern in this is I have not read any romance books. I know this is much more than just a romance book. Before everyone shouts at me, I'm aware. But I've not read any, and I'm a little daunted about delving straight into a romance with Jane Austen, or this with Jane Austen. So my other option is Northanger Abbey, and I know from Tristan's video, which again I'll link down below, so link his channel if I cannot find the specific video. He talks about this one as a good substitute to start with, and again, you still get the wit and wisdom of Jane Austen. So I'm hovering between these two, and if you've got a preference that you think which one you think I should read first, let me know in the comments below, and I will probably take it on board. I may completely ignore it and choose which one I want at a time, but I've got to decide between these two for Jane Austen. So that's Northanger Abbey or Pride and Prejudice. So yeah, so there's one of those two. I'm not quite sure when in the year I'm going to read them. And then the next one is one that should be, I think, right up my alley. It's effectively historical fiction, and that's the Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas. Again, a Tristan recommendation for a starting point. It's a bit of a thicker one. You'll notice I've picked a lot of skinnier classics to start with because I want to ease my way into this venture. But this one's a bit of a thicker novel. But it's historical fiction, so it's based on some level of reality, as all historical fiction is. Obviously, it's a made-up story, but based on the Musketeers. So you've got D'Artagnan, Athos, Porthos, and Aramis, and you know those individuals may not have actually existed, but the organisation existed. The time it's set in is of reality. Supposedly the villain in here is excellent, so I'm looking forward to finding out that. But I thought I enjoy historical fiction. You know, Bernard Cornwell, Conor Gordon I've read before. So this sounded like it should be right up my alley. You know, there's fighting, there's effectively warriors, and there's intrigue, there's politics and court, and duels, and whatever else. So this one I'm looking forward to reading. I'm thinking this one is probably going to be November, I think. So I'm thinking November because I've got Christmas Carol in December, which is short. So if this flows into December, then Christmas Carol's only like 100 pages, so I can catch up. So I'm thinking November is when I'm going to read this. And then the final one I've got is a George Eliot. Now, George Eliot is obviously the remarkable author, and I think everyone talks about Middlemarch as a book to read, but Middlemarch is too scary for me. It's too daunting, it's too big, so I've picked a much smaller one, again using Tristan's suggestions, which is Silas Marner. And this one really seems to be about sort of rural life. Obviously it's an interesting story about the individual, I believe, but it's also about rural life, pre-industrialisation, moving into industrialisation, and the way that impacts on life for Silas. So this is probably going to be the first one I read. So I'm going to my plan is to try and pick this up in July, I think. July/August. Yes, pick this one up in July/August. Then whichever Jane Austen one I decide to do will then be August, September time. Again, let me know in the comments which one you think I should read first. So that's then in September. Then we've got Mary Shelley is going to be planned for October. Three Musketeers for November / maybe into December, and then Christmas Carol in December, obviously for Christmas. So that'll give me then 5 more classics. That'll be 6 classics that I've read this year, which is excellent. Again, I'm starting this journey. I've not read a huge amount of actual classic literature, and I think these are some pretty good starting points. And if you can help me out with the Jane Austen, I'll be very grateful. But I'm looking forward to reading these. I'm looking forward to delving in. I've been inspired by the Picture of Dorian Gray and how good this was, and how much I enjoyed it, and how actually easy it was to read. I mean, there's a daunting aspect of reading a classic that is going to be very heavy and difficult, and you have to really focus on every word and syllable to understand what's going on. But actually, this was just a really entertaining read, and I'm trying to get over the feeling of not being smart enough or well read enough to venture into classics. And I think, the irony of that is if I don't venture into classics, I will never feel well read enough to venture into classics, which is a preposterous catch-22. So we're going to break that, and we're going to read 5 of the 6 in the next 6 months. And I will let you know my thoughts on these classic works of literature. And the reason they're classics, because in theory they're great stories really well told. And that's what I'm trying to look at it as. Great stories, really well told, that have stood the test of time. So let's delve in and see what they're like. If you want to join me on that journey, you've got a rough schedule of when I'll be reading them. Obviously, I'll let you know in my reading plan videos when they'll be coming up, but you've got a rough schedule, and I would love you to join me to read them as well if you're interested. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, comment down below, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.